bit delayed. But yeah, welcome to the second edition of the Slow Room Radio Show. Today with a guest, Dennis aycicek, aka Ex-Stotterkoi, aka Prask, aka whatsoever, aka the drummer of Duo Pimpernelli und der Mann in Rot. Yeah, and we're gonna talk a bit about music or non-music and ambient and why ambient is boring. And we're gonna play some music. So I would say that you just show something that you brought with you. So, what's that?
This is Untitled B by Kulva, and is like a, let's say, slow start into the thick ambient soundscapes we will listen to later. It's like an ever-going, ever-degrading sound loop that is like, I think it's 50 minutes long, and that over time completely degrades into pure noise of some sort of tape saturation. So this was just like an excerpt of a beginning that could degrade at some point.
But it's a Culver track.
Yes.
Yeah, I got quite obsessed with Laura's Body Was Never Found, which you sent to me a while ago. So, but would you consider this being ambient, or what?
I would say in the full context, yes, since it's like a something that does not pay a lot of attention and like evolves over time and goes into some sort of different state over time. In this sense, like the music itself becomes a different state from the clear sound to the degraded sound. But of course, like the change can also happen within oneself. If it's like an ever-going loop that does not change, of course, you get tired, you realize there's different patterns, rhythms, and details in it. So I would say, yeah, psycho-ambient.
Yeah, I don't even know if I have like that much of like loop-oriented stuff, but I thought like aesthetic-wise that this track by by Tussen Underjord, which is called Sorgen damit Forbes, Part 1, could fit quite good. I will just try to fade it into the track like a real DJ transition. Yeah, I made some notes actually, so I wanted to print them out, which I just forgot. But yeah, it's a Swedish project, like from 2013, released on 100 tapes and then re-released digitally in 2015. And it's somewhere between like kind of the Caretaker sampling stuff of like old music and a bit of a black metal dark ambient aesthetic.
gay. So interesting answer to the monotonous ever-going thing. That was like happening quite a lot, I would say. So can you say more about that?
I actually can't really, because there's not that much information about them, and I'm not capable of pronouncing the name right. I will try it again, but it's Swedish. It's Tusen under Jord. But yeah, they seemingly worked with found footage. I hope I'm not wrong. Yeah, mixed traditional or more like folk-oriented music with this degrading tape aesthetic. But I actually don't know that much, so we'll just be talking about speculations. But I thought it fitted quite right, like aesthetic-wise.
Yeah, I'm looking at a track now that I would play next, which is by Apologist, and she's like one of the founders, or like one of the heads of the No Rent label, which is mostly noise and experimental music. But she herself does a lot of ambient, but in a very interesting way, because it's like on the borderline of noise and ambient. Of course, you can go from like if you go more like narrow, like ambient is a lot of times like the loop that is playing now. It's like harmonics, like something soothing, like in the Brian Eno sense, something for the background that does not take a lot of attention, but you can take, and it evolves some sort of feeling. And in noise you can have like the same things, but a lot of times the harmonics are missing. So I don't know, like if you crank up ambient, like where do you end up in the noise, I guess. And other way around, like if you have like a harsh noise thing that is like a Vomia kind of thing that is like just going without dynamics, and you turn it down, then you end up in some sort of Spotify playlist for white noise for sleeping or for studying or something. So some sort of like the state of playing can also, like, I would say, change the purpose of the genre in itself, or like the music.
Yeah, that would have been a question I would have asked you as well. Like, where does ambient start and where does ambient stop, and where does noise start? Because you're way more in the experimental noise-oriented music, and I mean, if you put a filter on something, everything is ambient, and if you bang it through a massive reverb, everything is ambient. And like, I just read the description of like the biggest Reddit ambient group, and it says in the description, ambient music empathizes tone and atmosphere over traditional musical structure or rhythm, which is like the worst definition of ambient I could imagine, because it literally applies to everything, like, which also is like a very like Western view, like, because like what is traditional musical structure? Like if you play like gamelan music here, like everyone would be like, what the fuck is going on? Or like Indian ragas, where you have like structures that are like very non-comprehensive. Like I just learned that a tabla actually is not a rhythm instrument but a melodic instrument, and like for 10 years I was like, how the fuck do you come up with a rhythm like this? But yeah, this view of like traditional structures and rhythm is like very like pop oriented, and I don't know if, I mean, does ambient only exist compared to pop music? That it's like, or like, where does ambient stop? Like when it becomes like harsh or like disruptive? Because there's also ambient records that have like some like psychedelic spikes where you get a bit more to the darker side, or like genres like dark ambient that lean over to industrial music or so. Like, do you have a very short answer or a very good punchline on why ambient per se, like in the classical sense, is boring?
No, I would say it's maybe not a. It can be treated as like a genre itself, but I think it's like an overall term for an aesthetic, how it is being used. Because you have like this musician Claire Rosset, who coined the term emo ambient. And then you somehow, if you have that like as a sub-genre, you somehow end up in a narrow field of like what does emo mean in terms of ambient. And yeah, if you have like psychedelic ambient, then you end up in a different sphere. So I think like it's just like an overall term, such as there is no electronic music in itself, like as a thing. It's like an overall term that just leads to different little niches. So yeah, saying that, we go into more, as I said, like apologist, Rook. So we're going more into the psychedelic ambient now. yeah, where does ambient end? Where does noise start? This was my answer to it, I guess. And I would say that you can also, in that sense, like think about how people like My Bloody Valentine or what play, and it's shoegaze, but it's like this kind of, you end up like in the black metal genre also, like you end up like in such a high state in terms of speed of the strumming and the distortion and the loudness, so everything becomes one, like a thick sausage of sound. So in this moment, yeah, if you keep the harmonics, you can somehow end up in this Reddit kind of definition of the genre. Even though I would say, like, a lot of people would maybe argue this would have not been ambient in a classical sense.
Yeah, I mean, the classical sense is anyways, I guess, a good starting point for debate, because, I mean, Brian Eno, like, composing music exclusively for an airport to be the perfect background for, like, experiencing an airport, or just, like, being there and feeling okay-ish with something in the background that is not annoying. Yeah, which you wrote me today is more like the Muzak shit. So, I mean, it's quite easy to hate on stuff like, I mean, this background loop is just like a background loop, because it sounds like kind of ethereal. But when it comes to like making this as music, it's quite hateable, or like quite easy to be like, that's literally just, why not let AI or computer just make this, or have a drone generator that does everything. So, I mean, does ambient, or like these lines between ambient and experimental music, modern classical, they're anyways quite blurry. But would you say that the intention is kind of what defines it then? Like, if it sounds ambient or not is also like another, like, that's the other point from where you can watch it. But also, if someone is like, I make this as an ambient music for a specific situation, then it automatically has more value than if it was like computer generated in the classical, like, cultural sense.
No, yeah, sure. I would say there's always more value in if a human made something, or like at least started it. But I would say, like, in the genre of ambient, like in the pure form of it, it does not make a difference if it's a generative sound that is just playing forever in an elevator or in like a IKEA or something, or if it's like a loop like this happening on whatever streaming platform, or like on your iPod or something. So I would say, like, in the form itself, there's no difference. So of course the intention is the thing. So if you put up a loop and call it ambient, then there's more agency to it than if a machine is just spitting out an endless stream of sound. So I would say, like, in there's like the pure, not the pure differentiation, but like, yeah, there's a big difference in intent and what comes out of it. And as we know in experimental music, in the end everything becomes drone. So same as rock music, everything becomes shoegaze. We have everything becoming a drone.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the same. Like, if you slow it down and put reverb on it, everything is ambient or drone, I guess. Yeah, I would jump into what most people would consider a more classical ambient track. It's by Ludwig Wandinger, who's like a jazz drummer, mainly a drummer, but he produces fantastic electronic records. And this, I think, is a perfect example for something that on the first, like, listening sounds like classic ambient that's just like there to be a bass played for experiencing or calming down, but yeah, adds some more artistic elements to it. So I would just slide into Overlife by Ludwig Wandinger from the fantastic Is Peace Wild record that came out, I guess, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. it was kind of cheesy, but I just think it's a very pretty pretty record and track. But I mean, this is I guess approachable for many people because it's very calming, soothing, which is like, for me, it's one of the reasons why I would listen to ambient or drone music or even stuff like Kulva, because it is very, you don't have any fixation points. But I mean, it's quite easy to say that, saying, yeah, I enjoy listening to like dark ambient or experimental music or drone, that it's quite corny, because it seems a bit like, it is easy to say that one just says it to be like, I'm too cool for like basic music. And I would just like to hear what interests you in particular about like, yeah, noise, or the thing between noise and ambient, because I mean, for noise it's a different approach when you like, it's extreme, it's a relief or whatsoever. But where's the fascination in like drone music or music where there's nothing happening?
Yeah, I think it's as I said, like in the beginning, it's like more about this kind of where you start and where you end. Even though it may be one held tone, it will have like a change just in time, and a lot of things happen between beginning and ending. So in that sense, I would say that alone can be a reason why one would like to listen to like this kind of like stripped down, static, or maybe also even dynamic piece of ambient or drone or whatever. I think there's like different things, like in this sense, as we heard with Ludwig Wandinger, is more about the harmonics, like, because it's just, as you said, like beautiful, I don't know, it's like evolving emotions in the sense of like, you know, Hans Zimmer or something, you know, where it's like there's like a calculation on what certain kind of things evoke. So of course you have like, if you have harsh sounds, it's aggressive. If you have soft sounds, it's like non-aggressive, it's like calming or whatever, but you can flip it upside down. So I think there's no definitive answer to that. But like for me personally, I really like more textural things. So if I have like ambient in a sense of something that is like super clean, or just in this reverb tail, there's not enough happening for me to have my attention. And even though I would like to have it in the background, I would still have the opportunity to come back to it, as the big brain, said before, of course. So in that sense, I like if there's like some sort of friction, even though it may be very slow, like in the beginning with Kulva. Of course, it was a more dynamic song, but I have other tracks I would like to play later that have this, or let's like, fuck it, let's just play it now. Yeah, which is nothing is happening. So let's see where this is going.
Yeah,
in that sense.
Let's bore some people.
And we go now with the drone master, rest in peace, Phil Niblock, Pan Fright 70 Part 2. yeah, talking about points where you start and where you end. And now I will use this piece as intended background music, as ambient should be, by the law of God. No, but the interesting thing about this is Phil Niblock's drones. Coming back to the question about like the generated ambient and the man-made, human-made one. Like this kind of music you can kind of easily recreate just aesthetically, like in the synthesizer, of course. But it's like a composition completely made on classical instruments. In this record, I don't know the exact instrumentation, but I think like for this moment it does not matter, because it just shows that. Also saying, coming back to the idea of the ambient, like it's not a genre per se, but like an umbrella term on a lot of things that can go in this direction, like maybe like neoclassical or like super hyper modern electronic music.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting in this piece, and maybe after the recording you could do it yourself, like if you skip to the last 7 minutes, there's a lot of change, even though it sounds like the same note held for a long time. And that's quite a big part of this kind of music and the whole idea about it. It's like this kind of dynamic or slow dynamic that is ever evolving, and it's not anti-music in a sense of like saying like this is just a held tone, but there's a lot of movement, a lot of thought within it to evoke different kinds of emotion outside of the elevator music, of course.
Yeah, I also think what's so interesting about the idea of ambient-ish music, whatever it then is that it like forces you to like fade out of the normal way how you would recognize music. Like if you sit in a concert room and you listen to this for like half an hour, you either fall asleep or you drift away, or you look at your phone, which I guess, but it forces you somehow to get out of the normal time dimension of time. Like, I mean, maybe compared to like movies like Nostalgia or Stalker, where there's quite not much happening, but this endless time that you observe stuff just mirrors you back to an inner loop of observing nothing, maybe, or yourself. Yeah, but there's a video of someone explaining why he loves Merzbow, and he just said like it's the most calming music because he's like super stressed constantly, and that is music that forces you to literally do nothing because you're not able to listen to anything else or think about anything. And I mean, you just said to me that this guy performed at like 100 dB, so you're like physically incapable of like doing anything but like being blown away by this. And yeah, this leads over to like one of my starting points in like why I'm interested in drone music actually, which is Alice by Sun, written Sun O, but no one says that. Yeah, and they have like an approach between ambient and noise, I would say, like because it's very overwhelming yet very simplified. So let's jump into Alice, dedicated to Alice Coltrane. Yeah, we're just gonna listen to a few minutes of it. It's 12 minutes long, from the fantastic record Monolith and Dimension by Sun, who would be put into the realms of metal usually. This is Alice by Sun. And this, I mean, technically it's definitely not ambient. But I think Sun are a very good band to show like the complexity in defining what ambient is, because basically it's a metal band that plays standard metal riffs, but so insanely slow that it just turns into like a drone. And that's like basically, I mean, technically it would be the same procedure as like just adding tons of reverb and slowing something down, if one would be mean. Yeah, but that's what brought me into like drone music and music without rhythm, because I don't know, even I guess I'm just a bit restless many times, or find it very hard to like really shut down or relax. So having something that has no indication of time is always, I think, a very nice thing to have, and that's, I guess, for most people the reason why they would listen to ambient, I would think.
Yes. I would try to go from there and think about a different kind of approach to the idea of ambient, because we come from Sun now, who play on a very loud volume, like we talked about, like Phil Niblock playing at 120 dB constantly, and it's about the physicality of sound in a room, and that's what makes the music itself functions also on headphones and whatever, because it's like very well composed, but it of course lacks the physicality of it, and you can sort of emulate it with reverb and all this kind of things. But the whole idea about it is like the maximalistic sound, and therefore I remember when I was reading the thesis of Tim Hacker, who's also very known as like an ambient musician, but his approach to this kind of idea of ambient is more, he himself also said like performing it live on stage as a touring musician is like a farce, because in the end the music is composed. Even though you can do things live, of course, in ambient, it's like a room feeling thing. So maybe the acousmatic idea is better than the rockstar idea for ambient, having a room filled with comfortable seats, listening to the music, even though it might be challenging or whatever, but it's like this kind of taking time, sitting through time, then more than watching a person on stage changing one chord to the other or whatever they do. And in his thesis, it was about the time into the last century where a lot of people tried to get the maximalistic sound, and the pursuit of it was also like a farce, because people tried to get thousands of people that should like sing at the same time, have like loud instruments like tubas and whatever, and be inside a hall, outside, whatever, but they would just not become louder, because that's not how the physicality of sound works, right? If you have more of it, like, it does not get louder. So then, of course, as we know, like the organ being like this kind of instrument that the people at the time tried to emulate with different things. So an organ itself, in the reverberation of the church or whatever place you put it, only functions in that place, because if you put an organ outside, it kind of loses its body. And yeah, basically every instrument kind of needs a body, even if it's like a speaker or like a resonance body or whatever. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, you always end up in ambient if you want, or if you don't. And coming back to Tim Hacker, who who made like very interesting kind of. I mean, he made this album called also Love Streams, which is also I think a show here in Mono. I read that name somewhere, and yeah, I play something from his like very early catalog. Maybe some people don't know, because a lot of people, I think, tend to know like the Love Streams and Virgins and the new Anyo Konyo albums, which are all beautiful. But this is like more rough, and I think you can see where he was, because that's the time where he wrote also his thesis, where he was at that time. So I think it's a very interesting way coming from the loud sound of sun, going back to Tim Hacker's soft, cranky, bit crushed things. So let's go.
Tim Hacker. Yeah, I'm still thinking about what you said about performing ambient live, which is quite a confrontational statement for being a guest in ambient live concert series, where you will also play in March, if I'm right. Yeah, but that's also what Lukas Schäfer said, who played here like the last edition of Slow Room, and he also said just like, yeah, don't pretend it's like a real show. Just if you want to chat, just chat. If you make noises, make noises. I'm just performing here, and that's. I mean, that's basically. But then you can basically ask yourself, do you even need someone sitting there? Because if it's a room like this, like it's a room. It's not like a cave or a church where you would be like, okay, I'm gonna write a completely specific piece. But that's thin ice. So I better switch over because you just mentioned the organ as an instrument. I'm going to switch over to a track by Anna von Hauswolf, who just released her new record. She's Norwegian, Swedish. Fuck. Organ player, singer, like fantastic musician, and she made an organ-only record, of which I'm going to play a song. And yeah, she's on tour. Gonna see her February 4th in Cologne. But I guess it's sold out. Anyways, here's Anna von Hauswolf, Dolore di Orsini. Whatever this means. Ha! I should press play on the track that I want to play. So anyways, Anna von Hauswolf. Played on organ. Think that she considers herself being more in the neoclassical genre than ambient, but we still have not answered the question, what's ambient? And we never will. Actually, why I came on this as well is because Anna von Hauswolf, when she just did the organ stuff, only performed in places where the organ would fit her requirements, like, yeah, just specific types of organs. So she would only play in, or mostly, depending on the record, play in concert halls or churches.
create some different take on the idea, I would say. This is Autechre with Easter, and if you write Easter, change the last two letters in the order. So I played this because we were talking firstly, like earlier at least, about human-made music, computer-generated music, or like music in the ambient sense, of course. And on the other hand, I chose this because we listened to an organ, and I somehow had to think about this piece because it has like some organ qualities. Of course, it somehow has like it has a meter you can feel, like maybe not a rhythm, but like some sort of meter you can count along. So yeah, something about Autechre I found interesting because they were always using, or like from the mid 2000s at least, this idea of the generative sound. They were like training on algorithms before, then later on their own neural networks before this whole AI craze went off. So it's like a more algorithmic approach, but in a more maybe cybernetic sense, that you have like the machine in a like some sort of feedback mode that is like feeding itself all the time and like generates endlessly, but you, as with the cybernetic orders, there's one moment where you need a human in the loop that is like kind of the steering wheel and like takes decisions. So I would say that makes a lot of difference from the things we talk now about, like generative music or whatever, because it's like a model that you let running. You can also make like some, like I don't know, like arpeggio and like some LFO tools in Ableton with a lot of reverb, and come 1 hour back and it will be a different sound than what you listened for 1 hour before. So some sort of generative ambient in that sense. And paired with the organ sound, yeah, you can kind of like take the position of it in a different sense, like in a more abstract sense, and you take away the body from the instrument, which in other households where you said like it's a very deliberate choice on which organ, which church can be played. In the sense of our Autechre, it's different. Even though I saw them perform in a church once, so there's a full circle moment, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's also that. I mean, if you go a few steps back to the guy, I forgot the name, but who passed away, who was incredibly loud and he didn't want to perform on synthesizers. What was his name again?
Phil Niblock.
Yeah, because I mean, if you are a bit like taking it to the extreme, one could just say that anything you do with synthesizers or computers is anyways just curating the outcome, because like you take an instrument. I mean, that goes on and on. You take an instrument that's already built, but like a guitar, also you at least have to like play the notes, and the synthesizer you could just like turn on, put some patches in, and then let it run. But it's about the curation more than the machine itself, I guess. Yeah, I mean, how easily can the human factor be replaced in the making, or?
Yeah, if you look at the body of work of Roland Kein, like the Dutch composer, who was coining the term of cybernetic music, his body of work is now being released with on behalf of his, I think, daughter, and like Jim O'Rourke is mixing it, and like this whole kind of world coming together, and it's like a massive amount of music, because it's like just running and running and running. Like at that time, of course, there was the limitation of tape machines, and at one point the tape is full. So that's like the limit of the sound, and like with hard drives, of course, it's like kind of and MP3 and whatever kind of algorithms, you can compress it so much that you have like this infinite sound, so to say, which somehow has to be stored. And yeah, if you go into a physical sense, and then maybe we can talk again about the ambient thing, like with the piece by John Cage, where he made this infinite composition as slow as possible. It's called the piece, which is being performed in a church in East Germany, where like the pipes who set the tones will be like changed every now and then, which means like after 10 years you have to change the pipe so you make the next sound. Sure, it's drone, but like since it's like also doing some sort of dynamic change in tone, which is like a compositional thing, yeah, you can, and it's happening in a church, as we talked before, with the reverb. Maybe it's ambient. Maybe it's the longest ambient piece we could see, as long as the funding keeps the pipe people afloat.
Maybe ambient is just within us.
Sure.
Come on. I just skip the esoteric side, the horrible spa side of ambient. And yeah, I've nothing with me that's like so like generated or computer made. So I just skip to something on the opposite spectrum, which is more like, yeah, once again drone music, but this time with a harmonium. And I wrote down what other instruments, but like a bunch of acoustic instruments. It's Gonzalez and Steenkiste. It's a Belgian duo. Like the record is like 15 years or so old, which was recommended to me by Cohen Kohlbacher, who is Births That Change Color, and he played a song when I saw him like a few weeks ago, just on a harmonium and singing to it. And yeah, then he recommended this to me because this at least fills every aspect of drone music, I guess. We just jump a bit into it and yeah, listen to it. When there's also the question, like, could it even be counted as ambient if you have like real physical input for the musician? Like the performance itself is more like on the rock side than when it's like you put so much effort into it, like our bodily energy to like constantly play the instruments. That, I mean, we could also discuss about like, is it ambient if it's performed unambiently, or is it like that's like the question then? Is ambient just the intention or the perception, or is it somewhere in between? However, Gonzalez and Steenkiste.
Okay, this was a droning piece that is, as we talked before, like starts somewhere but goes somewhere else. I would say there's a lot of like high tones, high frequencies coming to it, and now other things, overtones coming. And I would like to go back to a more, let's say, more, maybe not chaotic, but more dense, and a piece that is like doing a lot of things that is maybe outside the classical terms of ambient, which has like this one gesture or one mode of sound. So I will play it now. It's called Gezwitscher by Saina, who is a friend of mine, and she studied in Den Haag in sonology and is now in Switzerland, living there, living, breathing, composing. And without further ado, I will play the track.
This, we just talked off mic about how dense this is as a composition, and initially I wanted to ask you about like the connection between your interest in sound or more sound-oriented music, with your background in like video, audio things, or a general interest in films, because I also think that like there's like it goes kind of hand in hand to be a bit interested in like experimental music and maybe movies that don't really explain themselves, or where it's more about feelings, and you just said that this is more like a storytelling thing, so were you first interested in weird music, or does it have any connection with like film sound or like work in general?
You said a good thing about like the connection of maybe not music, but like sound and video or film, because that's the second layer that has been, of course, added at one point, but like since then it's just there. And of course, when I started doing then films and videos at one point, I wanted to make my own sounds. So naturally from there I started making more. So I would say, yeah, it was a gateway to it. And I would not say that this is maybe the start of the interest into then more textural or like beatless or only sound music, non-music. But it certainly was like one way of it, like one idea of having like the film without the video. So sort of like, yeah, storytelling without a story, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks for your answer. I'm just like still a bit confused after breaking your iPod just before starting the stream. Like, I guess I wanted to ask you so many more questions, but we're already quite a bit late in time. But you are playing at SLOWROOM in March 18, together with Felix Florian Tütloff from Berlin. I'm quite excited for this, especially as I know your music for, I guess, even longer than I know you personally, because it's somewhat appeared somewhere. But you're in general not someone who would like perform at an ambient show in general under the terms of being an ambient musician. So
no, yeah, I don't know. Like I was always doing ambient on the side, or let's say as a source material, because I most of the time did not like to use samples and this kind of stuff. So as we talked before, like doing ambient can be easy in a sense of if you just follow the recipe. And if you do this, you build up like some sort of stems, which then you can reuse. And at one point, this was like my synths or like my atmosphere, and my music was always kind of in the approach of ambient, which then got recycled or resampled within my own music. And then at one point, of course, the beats got stripped away, and now it's pure sound without harmonics and stuff. So I think that's like kind of the curve it took from something that was always there, but now is like in a refined way that found its own voice without needing all the stuff around.
Yeah, stripping it down to the max. This leads quite good to the last track I'm gonna play. It's by Murmure, a French one-man mysterious whatsoever person project. There's just one record out, and that's like made out of a bunch of stems. He worked on this it's just written for a long time, but he also then stripped away seemingly like the black metal elements. It's still a black metal record, but more like a sound collage artwork. And in the first track, it starts with like pieces of the Camina Burana, and then fades into noise and ambient, and then has like 10 seconds of black metal track. And yeah, I'm gonna play another song that's like just on the ambient side, but that also leans to the more storytelling approach that the previous artist delivered. So it's 4 minutes 20 seconds Torchbearer by Murmur of their eponymous record.
Okay, so I guess to end it off, I will play now a track by the great artist called Mary, who goes by Friederike. Oh shit, no, I don't know. Anyways, Danish artist who makes amazing music. Is now more on the composing way of doing film sound. Started with noise, did a lot of ambient and something in between, and now we've listened to a track that I think is like summing up what we talked about a lot, which is called Everything Stays the Same. And so we go into the realms of the ambient.
Yeah, thank you for being here. That's it then, I guess. Press play.